Just made me think of it.
I'm calling the meeting to order.
Sorry. Sorry.
So if we can just start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a lot of fun things on the agenda today, which Terry explained to me is very similar to the agenda we'll have tomorrow on BPW.
We'll recap tomorrow.
At least, I mean, it's helping us figure out our priorities, right? If they're on both agendas, we know they're up there.
Continuity.
It's something we have to do, yeah.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
Well,
I guess I will second that. I was very happy with where the fee schedule ended up, so thanks everybody for the support on that in the town board meeting. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so you can take that off the list, Jess. We don't have anybody in
Jess, did you
attendance
share the link
remote.
4.
with 3+1?
Son of a, no,
Are you doing
Can you
that?
share that for them real quick?
Okay,
possibly.
all right, so I'll
God.
move the Jess moment later then, since you're doing that.
She's had lots of moments.
Jess asked for a moment to say some stuff, but she's gonna be doing that for a
Jess,
second there
actually.
too, so.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Do that. so
Do you
can
have
post
her
it
do you have Ruth's email?
I do.
Okay.
Perfect.
Basically, I just wanted, I didn't put it on the agenda, I hadn't thought about it, but, so. Because we're having our finance meeting in the second week and our town board meeting isn't until the fourth week, it will give us the opportunity to discuss, what resolutions will. Financial resolutions will be, proposed for the town board meeting at the end of the month.
It could work a little bit more like some of how the other committees work.
Yeah.
Where we're discussing the resos that will be coming
Yeah.
onto the agenda rather than talking about the resos
Right.
after they're already on the agenda, so.
So for the town board meeting at the end of February, I have 2 that I will be putting on there that I have on the top of my list. One would be the proposal for our audit services. I think we already discussed that. They did send me a proposal. I believe I forwarded that on to all of you with a 3-year term that seemed reasonable. So that'll be helpful, I think. Instead of having to go back out for bid for that. And then also, we did get, we've had this issue with the server, as you're all aware. And I guess the server takes a lot of load from our Tyler Technologies, our financial software. From my understanding, it's like 2/3 of the data that's held by our servers. It has to do with that financial software. And Tyler had Tyler Technologies, not Tyler, the IT guy. They had talked with us. They are moving to a cloud-based platform this year sometime. They are taking volunteers as they come to a point, and then they'll probably make everyone go to cloud. But we did reach out to them, Tyler McMahon and myself, to find out what that cost would be. They came back with a quote today, actually. So we can move our data from our server or even our cloud-based server. We can move to that cloud-based platform and they would hold our data. The cost is about $20,000, which is like twice what we pay now, but you're also not going to pay integrated to host that data. So you're kind of, instead of paying one, you're just paying the other.
What do we pay them? Same amount.
Integrated.
Yeah.
Right now, we're only paying them about $400 a month, but we're also moving to a cloud-based platform with them as well. And I think that is also an increased, the quote they gave us, I believe, was around $2,000 a month. So if we take out the Tyler Tech part, the Encode part, hopefully that it will kind of just, we'll be paying this one instead of that, I'm hoping. Everything's just so in flux right now that
Is there a risk of for our data? Like right now, our server went down, we
Mhm.
discombobulated. Is there a risk with that, us going to that server?
well, I believe that it is, do you mean with Encode
Getting
or
our
with?
data back, with
the
getting our
whole-
data, with accessing, with getting access to our data.
Okay, so no, because the access to our data, everything is backed up daily. So I know when the server went down a couple weeks ago, that data, we lost 7 hours pretty much of work that had been done, basically, because it had backed up the previous night. And so whatever happened during that day, only part of the data was backed up. Moving forward in the new cloud-based platform for all of our data, it has multiple redundancies. It's actually hosted by several different cloud providers. So they kind of, I'm not an IT guy, but I kind of get it. It's like,
I'm not-
They built it back.
But our
So,
data is safe, that's what we
it's
have to
safe.
say, at the end of the day.
It's
safe,
actually,
And we can get at it.
and I mean, they're the guys, right? But they said that it's actually more safe than
Yes.
Your
than
server.
your own server.
It is.
But how about this cloud-based one for the
So,
financial?
and the same thing goes
It's just the
for,
same way.
yeah, goes for Encode. You know, they have multiple systems in place to make sure that our data is safe.
So it always works until it doesn't.
Correct. Yeah, and unfortunately, this is something that we've been putting off for a couple of years, both in-house and with our financial software. You know, the cost of implementing it, there's always those upfront costs that we've kind of kicked down the road and, you know, unfortunately, we got pushed into a corner now, so it's kind of like, we may just jump all in. I kind of wanted to wait until after the audit, but when you look at the numbers, if we're gonna have to pay, you know, somebody to transfer all this data, or we can just have our financial data backed up in their cloud, you know,
Right.
then we're not paying for it twice, I
Yeah.
guess, so.
We would have had a third server for a while with Tyler to
Mhm.
keep it going.
Yep,
So they didn't have to, they would have kept just kind of one limping along for us for a while and then dumped it all into Encode, but it all meets. They do government contracts.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
all
yeah.
meet government encryption, they all meet the government standards.
Do we need to be bidding it out to different people or?
I don't think so, because you're not changing your software application, you're just,
is it
it's
the
just
third
how
vendor?
your data is being stored. And how you access the,
They're,
The software.
and as a continued vendor,
Mhm,
and we have a relationship where we have
Right.
that ability to work with them on that.
right,
So it happened to us a couple of years ago where somebody hacked in,
that's
get it in the cloud.
much
where
less likely to happen, yes.
Much less likely.
But Terry, not
He didn't
impossible.
say-
Never
he
zero.
didn't- he didn't say- he
They
didn't
would have to
say,
have the
but-
entire cloud system,
Right,
so instead of just one kid
right,
in some dark room in another continent, you'd need
Yeah.
like 5 kids in a dark room in another continent.
I mean,
Same
and
time.
he did say,
Like Asia, perhaps, China comes to mind immediately. Christopher Wray's testimony before Congress last week said they got us 50-1 in terms of hackers to
Yeah.
people we have countering. that. So,
yeah,
Yeah, so.
I-
not
Those-
you
You're bigger fish than us.
Never say never, but.
right, those were my
be a
words,
heck of a
Terry,
lot
I
harder.
mean, I can imagine if you asked this departments that integrated, they'd probably say the same thing, because you know, things 100%. I think he did say 99.99% or whatever,
But the
but
bigger they get, the bigger the target they are. for-
correct, oh, that's
Yeah,
correct.
we're
I mean, if-
small.
But
right?
they
We're
also,
gonna have to do it regardless.
they
right?
also-
So,
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
he did also make a point that by them hosting the data, it's their liability,
They're also insured.
so they are insured. So, you know, that's, they also host the
Oh, that's
liabilities.
the way to go.
So, yeah, I mean,
So
whatever
I'll probably
makes
have a
it
resolution in
safer,
regard
more,
to,
more secure, easier and cheaper. I mean,
Mhm.
that's,
yeah,
as long as it
it's just
makes
yeah.
sense, so.
Yeah.
We'll probably be good for it, so.
progress.
Thanks for bringing that up.
So there'll probably be a resolution in some form or fashion about our
About
plans
that.
to move forward with that, okay?
Awesome.
But that's it.
Okay, I'm not sure, are these the folks from 3+1 or?
Yes,
Okay,
they are.
great. I was gonna say we could do privilege of the floor, but probably not that. Since I'll put them, I think I'm gonna put them on this part of the agenda then, since they're here, since they don't need to hang out and hear about how we're gonna pay for lights. So, I have not been able to meet Ruth or Peter yet, but, you can feel free to unmute yourselves, and I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves and if they have the ability to unmute themselves. Okay, good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go first. My name is Ruth and I'm with 3+1. I'm currently at 3+1 as a business development officer. I have been with 3+1 going on about 4 years now. And I started off from as an intern here. I believe like almost 90% of our employees, we kind of transitioned from interns to full-time, and I've had the pleasure of kind of working as an on the data side of things where Peter is, and then also just kind of been a client services associate, and more recently kind of on the business development side. And I had the pleasure of coming to the town and meeting with the team. I met with Jared and just kind of had a conversation and learned more about the town. And that's my little spiel, and I'll hand it over to Peter.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us some time today. So Peter Forsgren, I'm a co-founder and COO, and as co-founder, I've been here from the beginning. So I'm old, 10 years now with this. And yeah, as she said, more behind the scenes, that's my area in terms of analytics and everything. We are a data company, which what we do, we collect so much data, we run models, and we try to provide information in succinct and concise ways that allow really any public entity to maximize the value of their cash assets. And that really is our whole focus, and everything that we do is just maximize value of all your cash assets, so that I think I heard how you're going to pay for the light, so that you can do those things with breathing more easily at night, right? And any of the other projects along the way. So thank you for giving us some time this morning.
Great. Could you maybe go over, you or Jared go over what the presentation was about when you had the meeting before, or? I waited till Jared had his mouth full of
Sorry.
food to ask him a question.
So do you guys want to go over some of your, first of all, some of the clients that you have and how your process works? And the benefit you provide versus the cost that would be incurred, because that's what the bottom line that it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Or
Yes, and again, thank you so much for the time this morning. And so what we do is, like Peter said, we are a data company. Always like to preface this by saying we're not registered investment advisors, nor are we a bank. We do not, take your cash. However, what we do is we provide the third party data, just the validation and the data to help people in Jared's position just make decisions with more confidence and ease through the usage of our data. And so we work with public entities all across the nation, including towns and just all types of local governments. And our largest clientele is within New York State. And so some of the towns that we work with are also the town of Aurora, town of Leroy, just mentioning a few that are kind of comparable to the town's budget. And what we have done is we have enabled these towns to maximize the value of every single dollar on deposit through our liquidity analysis. So the way in which our analysis works is we ingest banking data. So we ingest banking transactions, as well as billing our analysis statements. And then we stress test the value of every single dollar, every debit and credit, to identify how long and how much you have that on deposit, to identify areas where you all can maximize your revenue more, in an effort to bring additional revenue into your bottom line. And so what that has enabled the entities that we work with is to be able to fund potential positions that, we've seen a lot of entities potentially being short-staffed, or just been able to bring more revenue back into your bottom line, enabling entities to fund, capital projects. I think I learned that, the town has potential, you're working on hiking trails as well as building a new court. And so what we will do is just kind of analyze your current cash position and identify, can we help you all? Are you doing everything that you can? Are you banking in the most efficient way possible? Is there any value that we can bring in to help you all maximize the value of every single dollar on deposit? And so I think with that said, I just kind of want to pause there and open it up for any questions, or really just also have Peter add in anything there. I think it's a unique solution, but just kind of want to hand it over to Peter.
The one additional question that was asked was, right, the kind of the value proposition, Jared, that you mentioned. And from the beginning, day one, having my entire background in the public sector in terms of servicing it and working within it, is providing a service that is actually can be pointed to in the value. So it's not a soft value that we're looking at, right? And so anything we do, we guarantee 1-to-1, meaning, being the finance committee, right, both sides of the ledger, you're going to add an expense, a fee. We're going to add equal amount, no less than that fee. So at worst, it comes off. And we do that analysis and we provide where we think those findings are. And if we can't find that 1-to-1, then the one side comes off the expense because we're not going to charge you, and so does that potential revenue. And so it keeps you holistic there. The reality is, because of the value of the data, the information, the Monte Carlo simulations, everything we're stress testing, the forecast, everything that comes to you as our clients, and that's where the references have been, very valuable across the state, is to say, we're not getting just 1-to-1, but we're getting 10-to-1. And some are getting more than that, and some are getting 5-to-1, but mostly it's around 10-to-1. So if you pay, $1, you're getting $10. So ultimately, it doesn't balance out. It brings you well ahead on the revenue side by maximizing that value, by really pinpointing the value of every single dollar. And I love looking at it that way, in terms of, I've learned in my life, right? I'm old enough. I have car loans, I have mortgage loans, and dollar has value every second of every day. I have to pay interest for my loans for every second. And same on the investing side then, right? That your dollars have value because somebody wants it. They want it overnight. They want it for a day. They want it for a week. And those are banks, and those are the federal government, and there's other players out there, right? You have the investment pools like Class that I believe you're using, and all those things. Those are all the different players in that. And we're trying to provide data and information that allows you then to place it in all the allowable tools listed in your investment policy in ways that you get this value. So that's overall our objective, that it's not a soft value at all, that at the end of the year, you'll be able to look at the books and say, yes, this is the fee we paid, but this is the value we received.
So this is oriented toward where we have our investments, where we have money invested. You're not looking at how we spend money, but you're looking at where we invest reserves or cash that we have. Is that, I'm a little confused.
That's my gift, I think. Sorry if I confused, I should hand it back over to Ruth. But yes, overall, it's every single dollar, every operating dollar, not just reserves. So we're not looking at, we're not going to say, here's how you spend it, but we're going to get those transactions, because those transactions is what gets stress tested, right? And so it doesn't matter where you spend it and how necessarily. We're just going to capture that transaction. We're going to stress test it and then provide information back to say, you have X number of dollars that you probably need within the next 7 days. You have X number of dollars that you don't need for 30 days. And so this is the right tool for 30 days. You have X number of dollars you don't need for 18 months. So let's use this investment tool for 18 months and lock in that value, 4.5%, 5%. So that if another COVID were to happen where rates drop through the floor, that you took your 18-month money and you were able to lock in real value and have it depend on that value for that whole time period. So that's where we're looking at every single dollar, every single transaction. And independent of how you spend it, that's your decision, how you want to spend it and what you spend it on. We're just trying to make sure that that dollar has value until the moment it leaves your door.
So what other places do you use? Besides, I mean, right now we use a lot of CDs. We have some, we have some regulations on where we can put money, like it can't be in credit unions, for example. So what other resources do you use beyond like a typical bank CD for
No, great.
investing?
Great question. So in accordance with your investment policy, as well as the town's comfortability levels, no entity is the same. We see some entities are confident in, locking in their cash longer than others. So we would look at your investment policy just to identify the allowable types of investments. Typically, the entities that we work with, we see them investing in, CDs or treasury notes, T-bills, etc. And so we would just kind of work within your investment policy as well as your comfortability levels. And we certainly encourage baby steps. Some entities are comfortable with just going out for 6 months. Others are comfortable going out for a year, 2 years. And so to Peter's point, I also like to think about our platform kind of like a Google Flights. We go out into the marketplace and identify how, what financial institutions are offering, the great rates. And much like you would as you're traveling, and then we come back and give you that data and we're like, this is what we found in the marketplace. And at the end of the day, the decision remains yours to make. We're just that third party data provider.
So I think in summary, what I've heard you say is that you're analyzing our cash flow and you're making suggestions as to how long we have a certain value of cash. And it's up to us to go and decide where we're going to invest that cash. So you're gonna, as an example, say to us, you're not gonna need this $100,000 for the next 12 months. So it's free for you to go and invest. In summary, that's what I'm hearing you say. Am I right?
I think that's a great summation.
And they will
Good, that helps.
suggest, here are some places that will get you the best, here are the places that will get you the best rates within your investment policy for that $100,000 for 12 months.
Yeah, I think my confusion came in when I heard Peter saying he's looking at every dollar we spend,
Yeah, to see
money
when,
spent.
When we spend.
to
So-
see when we're
Right,
flush
right.
with cash. Yeah,
But that's,
that confused you a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at our spending, but not where we're spending, how we're spending, when we're spending.
To look at
Or
our
when,
books,
yes,
to
but
see when the books go like
When.
this. Yeah,
Not
to
necessarily
see
how.
when we need to spend, when we need money.
The cash flow.
What's the significance of your name?
We found the greatest value is it asks a question. It wasn't intended that way. Yeah, I have to give the credit to my partner, co-founder Joe Rulison, who's very creative, but ultimately it applies on many different levels. But analysis, insight, value, and then the gold box. If you see our logo, it has a gold box. Always the client, right? You're the main focus, and we want to provide data, analysis, insight, and then give you the best information possible. So 3 + 1.
Is most of your business oriented toward private side rather than municipal operations such as ours?
No, we work with public entities only. So we work with counties, towns, school districts, as well as higher ed institutions.
But no private industry?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So I heard you also say you've been in business for 10 years, and the name Joe Rulison strikes a bell with me. Where would I know him from? What did he do prior to this?
Well, I worked with JP Morgan Chase for a few years, Bank of America prior to that. And then he had his own company, Rulison and Company, that was an investment advisory firm back in the late 90s. He's also fairly known. He's on the water board for Monroe County Water Board as a treasurer.
Thank you.
So this is, at the county, we use these guys, and Mary Gates, the county director of finance, who I highly respect. She every year gives a ringing endorsement. And I've shared this before, but last year in the budget, in the preliminary budget for 23, she projected based on the market. About $2.5 million in interest earnings, looking at running the models and saying, okay, using our available funds. That we have available that we don't need to spend out and investing those, we'd earn about $2.5 million. Following their strategy, and she said this at our end of the year Ways and Means Committee. We earned over $8 million in interest at the county. And she said, the reason we earned that $8 million is because my staff had the faith to do what these guys said. They gave the recommendations. They said, here's the money you have available. Here's how much. You won't need it for the next 6 months. So here are your best rates. If you do this, you'll get the best return. So they did it. And that brought back that return, that extra return on that. Canandaigua School District uses them as well. I spoke with Matt Fitch, the finance director. They are very satisfied with the returns, with the customer service, with the success that they bring. So they're, those two other local entities. And they have both those have a much bigger purse than we do.
Not to take away, what 3+1's role was in that.
I mean, the market was
Influx
bigger, right?
of cash, but we also had a much higher return
Right.
because of,
Right.
the
Industry.
the
Right.
interest rates going up. Which conversely are now going to probably trend downward, so. It's not gonna be as easy to make money,
Right.
like as it was last year. Last year, everybody could have
Right.
made money,
So
but.
now more than ever to have
But,
somebody
yeah.
say, this is what the market says, we
Right.
run. How many years of models do you run, Peter, because you look at you run that, you said the Monte Carlo thing, which makes you think like a racetrack.
Right, so that's run 50,000 times, no less than 50,000 times. That's the stress test, right? So it's run over and over again to make sure we understand both worst case and best case scenarios. So that's how you determine then the potential duration of that $100,000 that was thrown out there, right? Is making sure you have confidence that the 100,000 really may not be needed for 6 months.
And I'm a little confused, Jared, because I don't hear them speaking about market conditions. What I hear them talking more about is available cash. And how much available cash we have to invest. Where we invest it is our decision. And my question is, do we have a financial advisor that helps us with that?
We do have a financial management company that we have, they more track our debt. And when debt payments are due, but we don't get counseling services, at least not since I've been here.
So
I think our previous town manager was kind of managing those decisions,
The manager was doing that.
was deciding.
And what
right.
I'm hearing Peter say is that analysis is more of terms what they're gonna do.
Correct.
They're gonna tell us how
Mhm.
much money we have and how long we have to invest it
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Am I right when I say that, Peter?
That's the summary in terms of where you're saying, where you put it. Again, we started in New York, our largest clientele's in New York, very familiar with the investment limitations that are allowed. Like Ruth mentions, we'll go out and bid. We don't touch the money, but we want to give you all the information so you can make that final decision and know that, yeah, I can get 0.25 more over with this institution than I might with that one.
So you do point us in the direction of where we should invest it.
Correct.
You're shopping the marketplace, so.
Give you the best options.
And you're not a fiduciary, correct?
That's correct. We're not going to touch the money ever.
So,
But you don't touch the money, but if your advice somehow proves wrong,
It's
what
on us.
liability do you? It's us that pull the trigger, so it's on us.
So that's where we look to those who have used us for a while to say, how well have we done? Because of what you're saying, yes, that does seem like that's a possibility. that's the value of having, I think the technology of the modern day to run those stress tests 50,000 times within, a few minutes. It takes about 15 minutes for the computers to do that. But to look at I don't want to say the possibility of those scenarios. It's a conservative model. I won't get into the details necessarily of what we created years ago, but the nature of working in the public sector is to recognize you don't lose principal, you don't lose money, right? And so the nature of those models is to look for that and then even pull it back some more from there for the very reason you suggest that if the model is wrong, we've already pulled back anyway in terms of putting those safeguards into it, recognizing the responsibility you have of safety and liquidity, that you have the money when you need it to pay your bills.
Okay,
I like not losing money. That was a good one. We don't lose principal. I like that.
Okay, so what do we need to do from this point?
I think we ought to save some of that discussion when they're no longer around. I mean, I'd like to understand what their fee is and how that type of thing, but as far as brainstorming and talking about where we go from
No,
there.
I mean, what, if we were to select to go with them, what do they need from us
Yeah.
if we were to do that?
So we would, so if the committee would need to decide, it would need to go to a board, obviously to a board resolution, but. So if we were to make that decision, then we would have to discuss and get the engagement paperwork. They need to access our accounts to then dig in and get the account information, so they look back a year. They have read-only privileges basically, and they look back a year, so they import the data from the last year that they put in, and then that starts to create the models that they look at, that they run. And that's the baseline that they pull from.
Mhm.
And you said the fee structure you said we're 14.8 or 14.9?
So the fee would be a guaranteed 14.9. And so when we deliver your initial cash vest report, we would then have to show you where we would bring in new earnings or savings that equate to the fee.
Okay, any more questions for them while they're here? Dave, anything?
where are you located?
Rochester.
In Rochester? Okay,
Okay. Great, thank you so much for taking the time and we'll chat about it and get back to you.
Thank you. All
Thanks
right,
for-
thanks, guys.
Peter.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Do we wish to chat about this now or?
sure.
Okay. I personally would like to know Jess's thought on it, because I know you met with them before too, so.
I did, I think at this point, we don't have anyone that has that sort of knowledge and background right now in this building to be able to make the decisions when it comes to that stuff. So
Or the time.
or the time, yes, or the time. So, I think it would definitely, I think it would be a definite way to fill a hole that we have at the moment. And
Fairly
like I said, it with the rates going down, projected to go down this year, I know we always budget conservatively with our interest and stuff, but it'd be kind of nice to know that we have somebody else looking out for that, and somebody that has the experience.
Their fee is based on what they make for us as well. So if their fee were to be, if we had a reduction in earnings, they would reduce their fee. That was my
Correct,
understanding.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, I was, crunching numbers in my head, and I did think about that, they're gonna, they charge you a fee, and then they have to prove to you, like they said, that they can earn you at least that much more, which we under budgeted our interest,
Mhm.
whatever, so. But it's still, like I said, it sounds like you kind of have a money back guarantee, you're either gonna make up what you spend, or they don't charge you. And it's,
How is that calculated then if you don't get back, if we don't receive what we intend, how do we know, where's the target? I mean, what, we budget a certain amount of money
right,
that we think we're gonna get an interest
Mhm.
return for the year.
right.
So that would be their
And that's,
bogey that they gotta,
yeah,
that.
I would assume, yes, yeah.
and then they reduce it dollar for dollar, for me, dollar for dollar.
Right.
Right.
So
They're
if we
gonna take that
budget,
Projection, and then
Right.
they're gonna be able to make more money with that. And that's where their fees, and if they don't make that money,
right,
then they reduce the fee.
And us budgeting conservatively,
Right, we've set
we weren't
ourselves up, right,
conservative.
I agree.
so it might be an easy
Like-
target for
I
them.
think it is gonna be conservative, but it gives us a
Right now.
jumping
Well,
off point, if they can make us, if they make 10-1, that's a pretty good return,
Even 5-1.
right?
You know.
Well,
Yeah, I
mean-
mean, if you're, I was just figuring out, I was just asking she says we're probably somewhere around $8 million invested, obviously, just
I
off the
think.
top of her
I
head.
think there's 5 in
Um,
9th class
if
and
you're,
3 in a
you know,
CD ring.
If you're using an investment advisor, they're usually gonna charge you between 0.5% and 1% on, for a yearly return, and that's about $80,000, so it's much less than that would be.
So the investment advisor.
Yeah.
And I would add too, I mean, you have Ontario County with a director of finance and full-time finance clerks and an office of 12 who are full-time accountants and full-time finance professionals. And they use this firm because they use a group like this because they see the benefit. A school district with a full-time finance, with a large staff finance office and a full-time direct finance, just focused on finance. And they see the benefit of using a group like this.
Yeah, I'm
What you're saying is.
I'm willing
maybe
to
those should be
admit my
reduced in
limitations
size.
and I'm not a financial advisor, so.
We're taking something off people's plates.
Yeah.
Correct.
But what I
This is
said,
not-
yeah,
yeah.
I am not gonna disagree with you, but what I'm, so. There is a track record.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those, there's really no,
Right.
because of the increased benefit, it's something that, I mean.
Mhm.
No, we don't have, like you said, we don't have anybody that has it.
No, and even to have,
That skill set,
and
right?
even to add something else to one person's plate, to keep
Mhm.
watching the market and running the numbers and keep watching and doing all this.
Yeah.
And
Like
are,
a
Even
business
going
for
forward, that's a lot.
are
We're
they,
not in business, so.
Now we have there's a group and a team to do that.
this is an annual
It's an annual.
contract, which is not a bad thing, because we don't know where we're gonna be at this time next year, right, with personnel, and that sort of thing, so. And I had mentioned, interest rates going down, but I don't think they're gonna go down drastically, so I think in any sense, we're going to, make probably more than even is budgeted this year in interest, and it would kind of be nice it was quite a good surprise to
Yeah, it
have,
was
this
nice.
influx, right?
Thousands.
So if we can continue that, while the interest rates are still high, which may be a few years still.
It sounds to me like they're looking for spots where we're withholding money at a lower rate that we would now put this into because we're not gonna need it for this.
Right,
So they're gonna find that money that we're not
Right.
even looking.
so,
I
Yeah,
just
John's
want to
trying
jump
to-
in here because they're not financial advisors,
no,
and they said they're right up front. So watching the market every day, and where we're gonna invest our money, we might want to consider having someone do the financial advising for us. What I heard during the conversation was that our town manager previously was the one that was managing our investments.
that's correct,
And if that's the case, we have a hole there.
correct,
And it sounds like the current people that we're working with, they don't manage our investments either. It sounds like they do something very similar to these people. And I'm comfortable hearing what they said in terms of them managing our cash flow. That's basically what I heard that they do.
right,
But it sounds like we need to have someone tell us how to best maximize the investment on that cash that we have available.
right.
And that's a hole that we have right
But
now.
that's what these guys.
I mean, that's what they do.
No, what
Yeah.
they're gonna do is they're gonna tell us,
Yeah.
if we have money in bonds, they're gonna go and tell us, well, your bond investment can continue to be a bond investment, but these people are paying 1% more than you're currently doing. What
I
I'm
got-
saying is, it's the mix of investments that we need to have somebody consider and look at. So in other words, if we have 10% of our money in bonds and we have 90% of our money in liquid assets, and it should be vice versa, or it should be some different combination of that. We don't have anybody right now doing that for us. And what I heard them say was they don't do that either. They're not financial advisors.
I think they do that. We might need to check.
Well, I think we need to check that
Yeah.
because I heard the first thing they said was, we don't tell you where to put the money. We're not financial advisors.
I think,
So what they do tell you is how much money you have to invest.
Mhm.
And if you
Yeah.
have your money with Canandaigua National in a savings account and Lions National Bank is paying a greater return on that savings account, they'll tell you that.
But they'll say, you have this amount of money and you don't need it for the next
16 months.
sixteen months.
That's
Take
correct.
it out of the savings account, put it in this,
Higher.
CD.
I don't
Right.
agree with that.
Yeah,
And
I think they do
that,
that.
well, I
That's-
think
yeah,
I want
that's
to hear
what I
that
heard.
because I heard them say they're not financial advisors.
so I think what they meant by that is that they don't actually touch your money.
Right.
They're not making independent
They're not-
decisions.
Well, then I think that's a question we need to ask, okay?
Well, I thought I asked him
Whether
that
we all-
question.
I did ask,
He
they're not
answered it
fiduciaries, so.
They're not
Yeah.
fiduciaries. He
That
said.
way that
They
do.
they
I
do
think
that.
I think they're doing a time benefit analysis, right? That's
Mhm.
in my interpretation. That's why I asked the question is the way I did. Anyways, but if the town manager was the one that was managing our investments, maybe they do it, maybe they don't, but we need to fill that void.
And maybe even to a point though. I mean, yes, Doug was making decisions based and mostly just CDs.
Mhm.
And we did it for 30 days, which is 60 days, 14 days, but even he didn't have the time to say, oh, well, you have an extra $1 million for the next 7 days. And then at 7 days after that, he didn't have the time also to look at things every single
Absolutely.
day.
So,
And so,
so that's a whole,
yes. yeah.
and I think that.
But that's all we've had.
We've
And
always
it's
had
okay.
that.
What Doug was doing was really
What these guys do.
Canandaigua National or Lions
Right.
or.
Mhm.
New
Who's
York
got the higher
Class.
rate?
I
Yeah.
mean, it's calls, he made
Right.
3 calls, whoever
Right.
had the best
Right.
return.
So I'm
For
gonna
the
ask
money,
them, I'm
so-
gonna email them right now.
Do they advise us where to put the money?
Do you advise? And I wanna use your example.
What sector or where, they are gonna advise us where to put the money. You're talking about sectors
we-
versus where it's going.
Okay,
We
for
only
example.
have currently
What I asked him was-
specific
Right.
options.
Right, exactly.
That's what I was gonna
We,
ask.
we only have specific options, like right now, we only have
Very
a few
limited.
approved
Right.
They
places.
follow our financial plan.
Yeah,
they do.
that's what I'm
So if we
saying,
have money in
but
the
like,
bank
they're,
account,
they're only gonna look at our approved
would you
options.
advise
Exactly. They're not gonna suggest something that we can't
Yeah.
do, right?
Like, for example, we
And-
can't use
And we didn't need it for a period of time.
Yeah.
credit unions, that's New York state law.
They advise us
Any
to
kind
put
of
it to
not FDIC
bonds
insured.
versus-
Exactly.
I think that's the
Yeah,
benefit.
continuing
Is
to hold
it
it in savings.
only
Works with
in the
public.
Question.
Yeah.
Right.
Say
They-
Do
They
they,
know.
They
they
only
recommend
work with-
specific bonds, specific entities to put that money into,
Yes.
not just bonds in
Right,
general,
but
but
specific bonds.
how,
And which bonds?
how
Or-
specific do they get?
Right.
Or a different.
But our
Or a different.
policy is very
investment
limited
form.
in what we could
Mix.
provide. We can't
Yeah.
buy all bonds, that's for
No,
sure.
we can't,
Right.
Yeah,
and we can only buy, I mean,
Or a
New York
different
state
investment
limits
mix.
Right.
what we're
And-
can invest in.
A different investment strategy. Mix,
Or a
same
different,
thing.
okay, and would you
Recommend specific
Yeah.
investments.
specific investments which would,
I mean, we use local banks. I mean, they may be reaching out to.
Another question I have is,
We
if
have to-
we
But we have to use-
engage 3+1, what do we do with the current people that you said we're working with?
we need.
They don't offer any financial strategies such as these. The only thing that they've been doing since I've been here is a couple times a year, they send me an email that says, these are the debts that you need to pay.
I don't think you're answering my question.
Okay.
What do we do with the people that we currently have employed that are doing that? Do we need them any longer? or
We
do
don't
we
have people.
relieve
doing
them?
There is no one doing that.
So who comes in twice a year to do this?
It's Bernard P. Donigan. They're just
And we pay them for this?
We pay them
it's
for what?
minimal per hour.
They're
payment.
just-
Do it on an hourly basis?
Yes,
And they
So-
help with the AUD also, right?
correct. Yeah.
Which
What's
is,
that? acronym?
It's an
It's,
annual
uh,
update document.
it's
It's
a-
our,
Yeah,
it's our financial
State.
reporting to the state.
So we'll still need them to do that.
Yeah,
Even
but it's
just for
little,
that
I'm like
document.
$800, $1,500 a
Okay.
year that we're paying.
Donnigan's not saying invest.
No,
No.
no.
Right.
They're like,
We don't have
They're just-
anybody.
yeah, they're
Well,
like,
they're
they're
tracking the
like, pay your
reporting.
bills.
So
This bill's coming up.
That
it
was-
sounds to me like we need someone like this,
We do.
absolutely,
Yeah,
but I'm
Is that-
concerned
am I
about that as
capturing?
a whole.
okay. I wouldn't actually mind reaching out to BPD or whatever they are and finding out exactly what they do. Cause I keep a chart of what debts were
Yep.
due when, you know, like,
If they do
are
that,
they,
then it's even,
maybe they're necessary as
Better-
part
a
of
better
that.
deal.
I mean,
Okay.
currently,
Think, but it's worth it.
currently we have basically,
I just, like the same.
our current policy says there's so and so many banks that we are allowed to invest with. And obviously New York State law regulates, we can't, you know, go buy Procter and Gamble stock or something with our money as well. So it's not, you know, a lot of financial investment advisors wouldn't be terribly helpful. What's nice about these folks is that they're focused only on public sector companies, so they recognize the limitations that we have and where we can and cannot invest. But currently, you know, in the town of Canandaigua, and even when we had Doug here in the past, we basically have, okay, we have this pile of money. Let's see what CD is an appropriate place to put it this month. I mean, maybe between,
CDs,
you can,
fighting CDs
yeah,
in
they
New
can,
York
they can,
lives.
they can call, you know, Lions National Bank, Canada National Banks, be like, who's at 5, who's at 6? Okay, we're going with 6. And that's basically what we've done up till this
Yeah.
point, so.
and to that point, I think the state does have some flexibility in terms of where we are allowed to invest. And I think we need that level of counseling to tell us whether we should be shifting within those parameters at any given point in time. And I think that's a good question, and see whether these people fill that role or whether we need somebody to fill that role.
Okay,
I think that makes sense.
all right.
So I'll see if it comes back in the meeting.
And it's a home run.
I'll let you guys know.
We've got a lot of other things on the agenda, so if you guys are comfortable, I'm gonna
Yes.
move along. Jim, are you there or just kind of hanging out? I don't know if you want to wish to share opinions, because we're coming into where we would talk about the 332 lights and some other highway type projects as well. So I don't know if you're actually there. Probably not. Since you're not unmuting. Okay, so I know Lindsay, you also spoke a bit with Jim about some of these projects. I think our main thing, and again, it's hard to do when right now, we don't really have a financial manager in the town, but we need to start talking about, you know, I think
I'm
these,
here.
oh, hi, Jim. I think these,
Sorry, I'm driving. I just had to get a second to tap the button.
oh, sorry, Jim.
Be safe.
So I, you know, some of these are all projects. I mean, one of the reasons I put these all on here is that I think it's important at this point that we start taking action on the things that we have really in some way bidded out, and start figuring out ways to pay for the things we bidded out before we bid out anything else at this point. So, Jim, the first thing on the list was the replacement of the lights on 332. And I think that's kind of one of the easier ones. I think we had been planning, we're gonna have the bid fully pay for those, the Uptown bid. And I think we had figured out the bid had just over 100,000 currently in the bid budget. And that they would be taking in probably another 75 this year, 75,000. So close to 200,000, and Jim, those replacement lights on 332 are what, about 500,000, we're guessing at this point?
I would use that. I would use that as a placeholder. I've taken the direction of the last Public Works meeting to hopefully get a number by tomorrow on what the lights will cost us. So we can have a clearer conversation with the bid and the finance committee on what this is going to cost.
Okay, but no matter what, we're probably gonna have to borrow something on,
Yes,
so,
yes.
probably around $250,000, I'm guessing.
Well,
So
the bid would borrow it.
the bid,
The
yeah,
bid would borrow
exactly.
it, and then that 100 and 70
Yep.
could pay the note on it. It could pay the
Well,
note on it.
right, so there's 75,000 budgeted this year,
Mhm.
and it was budgeted to pay the interest on a ban,
Mhm.
basically, so.
And that was the plan. Yeah, that's the plan.
So it's
for
not,
that.
so technically, you wouldn't say, oh, I have
Oh, so sorry.
$2,000 in,
Yes,
your
you're right.
200,000 in
Yeah,
cash.
that was
and
the plan.
You'd have to borrow the whole.
Borrow the whole
We
chunk
had
and
to do
then,
that was the
yeah.
plan, was we created that to get
Yeah.
this going, and
Yeah.
Jim and I met with Farmington, the state, there are other things that we're kind of working with on this as well, but. The goal is to have this decision through here in Public Works and at the bid meeting, which will. Because of what's going on in the 12th and all the public hearings, it'll be on the March meeting. The
Okay.
first meeting in March we'll have a bid meeting. And we'll hopefully have a resolution to get this moving and get a.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. So do we have people on staff somehow that can somehow start the process of the ban? I mean, is that something that we have? Are
Well,
we able to
There's
do that?
another hole, right? Like, does anyone have experience with financing something like?
Well,
Yeah.
I would ask the finance committee, like, if we're going to look at a band, we should look at a large band, not one for $250,000. No one's gonna look at that and give us a decent rate. You might be better off just going to a bank for that little bit of money, because it's not cheap to do a band in general, just to get it going.
Mhm.
I think what we have
It
to,
takes several months to get your band completed.
But this one has to be separate because it's a bid, doesn't it? I
I
mean,
don't
does
know,
this one have to
does
be
it have to
separate?
be?
Yeah, You
Is
can't-
somebody gonna loan us $200,000?
no, but what I was just,
Under a bond.
right, what I was just
I
trying
mean,
to,
aren't there
they're probably. Again,
But you're
this
gonna
is,
pay.
I'm a,
more because of the,
I, like I was saying, if it's a $500,000 project, then you should. Borrow $500,000, like, I don't think that.
Yep.
Because the
Yep,
money
you're
that's
right.
budgeted
Okay,
is
yeah.
to pay the interest.
So
not-
I'm gonna just
Yeah.
remind everybody
But you're
that,
saying 500,000 is too little to
Yeah.
borrow.
That's what
Um,
Jim just said.
it was my understanding. It was my understanding, I think we discussed this before, when Doug was here, a question that I had is, you're not allowed to mix. You can't borrow a big chunk of money and use it for several products.
but one thing that we could probably do is, what comes to my mind is what we do with our special districts right now. And I'm thinking Jim would recognize this with some of the water districts, like some of them, the larger parent district is loaning money to the smaller districts, so to speak. So we could have a larger parent loan from the town that is loaning money to the bid.
yeah,
I
but
don't,
those are usually within that framework of,
right, yeah,
like, Canada we consolidated loan
Yeah,
money for a
exactly.
project within.
Yeah.
you
But
can't,
you
right,
can't use that money to
For
do-
another spot, yeah.
Outside it.
you're
I
right,
would,
yeah,
I don't think any of us have this expertise.
so
Donegan
BPD,
does.
Donegan,
Donegan.
okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna make that recommendation that I bet
Perfect.
the finance committee have Jess reach out to Donegan's office for a meeting to discuss what we want to finance.
Okay.
I
What
have
were you saying?
a more fundamental question. And I guess I'm kind of ignorant of how we got to this point. With the bid and where we're at, but. Why would a certain group of taxpayers that are in the bid be responsible for the streetlight and road improvements where the whole town pays for outhouse park road improvements?
It's kind of, the bid was created with the purpose of improving the area that.
How do we
commercial
create the
area.
bid?
It was something that
So-
Doug came up with a couple of years ago, so.
Did the board vote on the bid?
Yep,
Did the
couple years
district vote on the bid?
No, the board voted to create the
Yeah,
bids.
the bid was created by the,
So.
I didn't hear that last part. The bid was created by the,
Finish, then I'll-
Go ahead, Jim.
board created the bid. What I mean by the bid is this business improvement district, so that not only was there lights, but there was the ability to maintain the sidewalks, add personal touches to someday the light poles, banners, present an appealing business district to those who business in this area.
You're cutting in and out a little bit, Jim,
Yeah.
so hang on, we're
And
gonna,
it was felt that people by the businesses, not the entire town.
it's funded by the commercial businesses within the
I
bid.
understand that.
So, and it's
So-
similar to the downtown Canandaigua
I
bid.
understand that.
It's meant to, it was created to create a district with a welcoming business district that could have improvements like better lighting, banners, landscaping,
And I-
et cetera.
and I
Jim,
understand that
We're
also.
having trouble hearing you. You're breaking up
Uh,
the words, so
I'm
that's why.
sorry, folks.
No, that's fine, but that's why we're going over what you just said.
Okay,
Let's talk about, so when it was created, that's what you're getting at, right? When it
Yeah,
was
how long
created
ago
and
was
how- It was created a few years ago.
Yeah, it was my first year in,
So.
so right
it
before
was
you guys
Within
came
the
on.
last couple, it was, so it was, I think it was shortly after.
22,
I was- so
sometime in 22.
Sometime in 22. It was, Doug had the idea, it was stemmed off of the form-based code. Off of that, next part of that discussion. And I think it came out of the discussion of how do we pay for the stuff that we want to do in Uptown without raising taxes on the entire town? And the idea that he had come up with was, well, create a business improvement district. And then you're not raising taxes on town residents, you're raising taxes on the businesses. That was the idea behind it.
No residential involved in this whatsoever. So
It's only-
when the development takes place on Firehouse Road, that is outside of the bid,
They're
So
not,
the bid is just that corridor. And any of the businesses in that area, there are a half dozen-ish residential properties within the bid. They
But
don't,
they're
they don't
excluded.
pay bid tax, they don't pay the bid district fee, they're exempt. It's
Special
only
exempt.
businesses.
okay?
The only people that pay into that are businesses. So it was presented to the board. We had public hearings to create it. We had meetings about creating it. And then we created the bid
Thank
as
you.
the town board.
That helps me understand.
So the whole premise behind it was to not raise taxes
On everybody, but.
on everybody, but by raising
Single family.
taxes and figuring out again, how do we pay for stuff?
And in the case of the lighting is there because the businesses are there.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yes,
you wouldn't, if that quarter had no businesses along it, you wouldn't have all those light
Right.
poles and
because you wouldn't have
so
sidewalks.
they are tied together in that.
And you wouldn't have
sense.
sidewalks, and you don't have businesses, and you wouldn't need that, so.
Well, that's kind of what I'm wondering, like, so there could be a conversation about, yes, the light poles wouldn't be there because unless the businesses were there,
Mhm.
but would the sidewalks be there?
If
And
there's
then,
no reason to go there, no. they
No,
wouldn't.
there wouldn't be sidewalks if there were no businesses on.
You know, you wouldn't, I
Right.
mean, sidewalks are there to convey people to the businesses that are there,
There wouldn't, yeah.
although most people drive there. I mean, it's,
right, or a lot of people walk there,
well, yeah, so therefore the neither one would be there, in my estimation, they wouldn't be there if the businesses weren't there. I mean, they're there, so.
at any
put those
rate,
Amenities in.
we've all pretty much agreed at this point that the bid would be funding these light replacements. Do you have an issue with the bid funding the light replacements? or-
no, I wanted to understand a little bit more how it was created.
Okay.
What the intent was and why, we sectioned off that, so I got that answer, and I appreciate that, gives
So
me
they
a
have
little
separate-
background, I
They have a
guess,
separate assessment on their tax rolls
for the bid.
for the bid.
Kind of like your special lighting district.
And
districts.
it helps me understand that there's no residential involved, it's just the
Nope,
commercial,
no resident.
just the
anything with
commercial
it.
thing.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about the future development in that
None
area,
of those
whether it
homes.
extends to that. or
And
not.
any homes that might touch into there,
Mhm.
the new discussion that we've been having,
Mhm.
none of that will be involved in there. Some of the business, some of the business, first floor business might touch in there. I've got to look at the map again.
Yeah,
I'm fuzzy on that transition area,
The
that,
sub area,
that other, the backside
But
of that.
now,
they're not in the bid, so.
Yeah.
we talked about potential sidewalk
Mhm.
and potential amenities in the
Mhm.
park. Sidewalk then falls into the bid, or does that fall into the overall town maintenance.
If the bid board of directors decides to include the sidewalks in
We
the
could-
bid, it would be,
And that's us.
that would be the bid.
So
board
we
of
decide
directors.
that down the road.
Because we're the same.
Yeah.
We're all
Okay.
related.
Until we
Yeah,
change the
but it
bid.
depends on where those sidewalks would be. I mean, if they're further to the east, you know, as the uptown area grows, as single family homes, apartment buildings are built. Sidewalks getting from those areas to 332 will be the question,
Mhm.
but
So sidewalk
me,
by,
I don't know that they belong in a bid. I think that
Would be part of the
responsibility to do that would fall to
Yep.
the people building all
development. Right, the
the.
development.
what we're talking
infrastructure.
yeah,
about.
but the sidewalk, so your question, John, the sidewalk, say a sidewalk by RF Collision in that vicinity,
Mhm,
going through there to 332,
mhm.
that could be an amenity. It would be in the bid, but we could approve it. Because it would be a
Our
benefit.
decision whether we want
It's
to.
in the bid, but it's a benefit to the town to have that.
I didn't mean
Maintenance
to
on that
digress.
Sidewalk would
The
actually be the
maintenance,
question.
the maintenance would fall to the bid.
Okay,
I didn't
no
mean to
offense, but
digress,
we're
but
getting
yeah.
very far abreast of what we're
Right,
supposed to be
but it's-
talking about. So Jess or Jared is gonna reach out to Don again about how to start the process of the ban.
Yep.
Yes.
And Jim is going to figure out with PPW about what price range we want to be in, so. So for the
Well,
like,
Yeah, Jim said he-
He's gone out for quotes. and
Yeah.
Get some
whatever.
tomorrow.
okay,
Hopefully,
cool. Cause I want to get that going, so, all right, on to the North Road Highway Improvement Complete Street, we, one of the questions that I had with this is, Jim, do you know how much the match would be if we were to get that grant?
so we applied for 3.5 billion,
Million,
I believe,
not
a
billion.
million.
Don't say billion.
Maybe I'm thinking Booyah then, I apologize.
Okay.
A match, there's, they're doing is supplementing our costs, it's not, because we're already gonna match it, because the project's around 6.5 billion,
Okay, million, it's okay, 6.5.
6.5 billion.
Stop, I'm not building any $6 billion roads for you. Jim.
No, 6 billion.
Do all the roads for that.
Yes, we could. I'm sure somebody would be happy to take that ban.
So 6 million is our cost and then the grant is maybe 3?
Around 3.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, so we're thinking we're gonna, at bare minimum, we need to find $3 to $3.5 million for that.
Yeah, if we're successful with getting the TAP grant.
Okay, so that's, I think that, that project, which we've been talking about for a decade. Do we have any, do you happen to know what's in the? We talked about this before. I think we have I think it was 240,000 currently saved up for it in the
So no.
H43.
So no, we don't. So we had 266,000 that we had taken through resolution last
Mhm.
year from some other appropriations. And that is actually already the only reason that money was moved was to cover the engineering costs. So there really isn't any
Okay,
funding for future
Okay.
building, actual construction.
okay. So that one's gotta be pretty high on the list.
So again,
So
something we would
as we
talk-
find, some of those fabulous extra interest dollars we made last year, and we figure out where we are on the extra money that came in from sales tax and everything,
Mhm.
that's gotta be a place that we're looking, but we're also obviously gonna probably have to borrow some money. Jim, if that grant does come through in August or September or whatever, do you remember when they want us to begin construction by?
So that's gonna be a grant similar to the Bridge New York. You're gonna take another year of paperwork before you even start.
Okay,
So
So-
if you got the grant in 25, you will not start till 26.
okay, so do they have a requirement of when it begins no later than X, Y, and Z, or?
They do. I don't know that off the top of my head when that would be.
Okay, but
There's a window.
You can't,
yeah,
you can't start the work before that.
No, because you'll lose out on that grant. But if you do anything before this project starts,
Yep.
you'll lose out on those dollars.
Well, what we should do before this starts is start figuring out how to pay for it. So.
Yes.
So that might be, that's gotta be another place then that maybe we can ask, when you're speaking to Donegan again, how we would, go about starting a ban or a bond on that.
Yeah, well, I think one of the principal questions for Donegan is there a way, a mechanism where you could take 4 or 5 of these and put them together,
no.
the total up to
Mhm.
8-10 million bucks, but then parcel out, the payoff coming from,
More
these
important,
different areas.
like a bit, like.
There may be no way to do that, it might have to be each, but they can answer that question.
Yeah.
What they
yeah.
do for a living, so.
And well, it's kind of
Inclusive
this,
of the bid.
Yeah, but the big question is, can the bid go in there?
Yeah. and it's kind of the same question with the, the water main replacement, Jim, you said that's what, 2.5? I forget what that number was you had in the water mains.
To start replacing, well, I mean, we're talking tens of millions of dollars to do that.
Yeah. But you,
if-
yeah, but you were looking for a specific amount to start with, weren't you? I think it was.
Yeah, we do want to start with, I will say, 6 to 8 million, because the WIA grant is out right now, and that gets you up to 5 million. Now, that's due in June, but we found that out. Problem is I want to say problem. The issue is we didn't budget for a WIA this year, and we would have to start it literally at the last February board meeting to get it in on time, because there are many dates that have to be met in concurrence to even get it in by June.
Okay. So what do we need? I mean, are you definitely planning to do that this year? Is WIA every year or every other year? now?
WIA is every year. WIA is every year.
That's what. So is that something you definitely want to be doing this year, or would you be preferring to be waiting for 25?
Well, that's a good question. We're looking at about probably 50 to 60,000 we would need just to get the preliminary entry, PR, paperwork, bond resolutions, approvals to even submit for WIA this year. It's not like we just take a piece of paper, go, yep, here you go. There's quite a few things that have to be submitted in order to get the application to be strong, so that it doesn't show up weak and we out that year.
Anybody have
So that's
thoughts?
a question. It's a question that the finance committee needs to bring to the town board if they want to look at any unappropriated fund balance in the water districts, or sorry, the consolidated water district, to fund that this year. You would have to do a budget amendment to your budget.
But that would be a legitimate expense from Canandaigua Consolidated District, I would say.
Yes.
Yes, it'd be illegitimate, correct.
Budget for, but you take it from that, but I would think also that if we spent that money, we got MRB to put that whole plan together, and we didn't get a grant for a WIA grant, that information isn't going to change over the next year. And since you can apply every year, you apply again, same package. I don't know if you have to, if there has to be a difference year to year in the verbiage, or
So, Terry, they do little nuances of changes every year.
Yeah.
And that depends, that's it's already done. So all you have to do is just make some minor changes and resubmit.
yeah,
So-
it'd be a very low cost to make it.
Right.
I think so.
But my question again would be, before we invest in another project, do we want to be doing it now with this other stuff going on?
Yes.
And maybe we do. I mean, it's just, is it the
Well,
right time for
yeah.
it, or is it next year the right time for it? I mean, I don't
Some
know.
of the other projects, I mean, they're gonna involve bonding. In order, maybe they're better defined than this is at this point, but. You could, I would make the argument, you can take the money out of Canandaigua Consolidated. So we're not searching for money to fund it.
Yeah.
Whereas we are in these
Right.
other cases.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you know, and.
We're not searching for money to fund the initial
No.
application, but we are searching for money to fund, you know, that remainder over the 5 million.
Well,
That's
that's
what
the
I'm
thing.
saying. So,
And that's where we really gotta decide. How much is it gonna, how much of that ACP pipe is going to be dug up and replaced with PVC, so.
and he's saying he's
where-
anticipating a project cost of 6 to 8 million with the WIA
Yeah.
maximizing at 5, so that's still another.
Oh,
3
yeah,
million,
yeah, I
so.
mean, but it's, you gotta define it, it's
Yeah.
not, I mean, that's. Him talking from his truck right now.
I know,
saying that,
yeah,
so-
no.
It is.
But it's, you know, we had electroscan come in and do.
Yep.
Testing last year and identified certain areas where. They did find issues wherever they looked,
Mhm.
so the.
Correct.
Ground is
Done. Yeah.
deficient to a certain point, now whether it'll hold up another 20 years, I don't think anyone can say.
Yeah.
So do you start, you know, up on, well, out the Middle Cheshire Road, they found some problems over on, over that way. Can't say the word, where Lloyd's farm is,
Oh.
no.
Cooley.
You're cool, where he was.
He's he's in the room.
Well, I mean, there were areas identified, but how far
Yeah,
those issues exist, I mean, you're kind of. Shooting in the dark to a degree.
but, well, and
So-
that's, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
So am I hearing is the finance committee asking for me to approach MRB to get a proposal together for WIA for the end of the month?
Well, we'll see Greg tomorrow morning, we can. And a lot of these items are on this agenda, or on the agenda tomorrow also, so.
Yes,
I mean, that's my,
He's gonna
from
be
a
there,
finance
so.
perspective, that's my overall question though.
Yeah.
It's like, are we, you know, are we at a spot where we want to try to grab, I mean, at least these sort of highlight real items and lump them together with a larger borrow? I think we probably are. We've been talking about all these things for decades.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
You're-
think,
You're right, we do need to. Stop talking and start acting.
yeah, I mean, I hate to be borrowing money. I don't think any of us want to borrow money, but it's clear that we don't have the money to pay for these things. And some of them are absolute necessities, like the water main replacement. I mean, it's either we're gonna replace it or it's gonna break, you know, it is what it is, so. Okay, Fire Station 2, the roof replacement, why did we put that on here? We need to do, there was.
There was something about the external repairs are being covered by the town.
Oh,
the
yeah,
internal
yeah,
repairs.
yeah. I just wanted you to confirm again, Jim, you had said, I think in one of the PPW meetings. So that I believe, if I'm reading what you said correctly, Jim, you had said that the town is in charge of repairing anything externally on that facility. And the city is in charge of updating anything internally in that facility. Was that reading what you said correctly?
it is.
Okay, all right, so now that we've replaced the roof, are there other anticipated deficiencies or things we're gonna need to work on over there?
Yes, the ventilation system
Okay,
does not work.
and what, do we have a cost estimate on that?
I have a idea of the cost, but the quote is a year and a half, 2 years old from what they did at the fire station in Canandaigua. So obviously it's probably gone up. I don't know it off the top of my head. I can
Really?
get that for
You don't keep all this in your brain while you're driving everywhere? I'm disappointed.
no.
All right, so for that one, do we need to make sure that we're somehow budgeting something to be doing that this year? Is that something we need to be doing in 24?
We do, yeah, we need to do it this year. There's nothing works over there for ventilation.
Okay, so,
I will,
where were
when
you?
I get a minute, I can get that number and share it with you guys.
Okay, well, I was just wondering where you were thinking of funding that through.
That would come from the A fund. That's a building. So
Okay.
the A would have to fund that.
Don't we have, Jess, don't we have a fund that's for building
Emergency
repair?
repair, yeah.
Yeah, we do, okay, so maybe we could start it from that one, okay.
Yeah, it depends on how much it costs, but there's definitely we'll have some options. I don't think it's, $500,000 or anything, so. we can
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's not gonna be that much.
look. So yeah, we can definitely look to see once we have a price, we could figure out where
Okay.
we should look.
John, did you have a question?
I do. I'm wondering whether we should have a meeting, and maybe it's tomorrow's PPW meeting, where we prioritize our needs. I know you have attempted to do so here on this list, but we had a list of $165 million worth of projects, and I think we all ought to just go through the list and kind of talk about where we think the priority of it is for each one of those. Because, and I think you've gone and attempted to do that here, but we might be missing some projects that some of us might think are very important.
So what I was thinking about here is, that's obviously part of it too, but this is more and things that we've already kind of spent money on engineering, because, one of the things I've noticed on the town board, as soon as you spend money, like Jim just said on the, on the ventilation replacement, as soon as you spend money on engineering something or preparing a quote or whatever it may be, we shouldn't be wasting money to do that if we're not going to begin doing it soon, because if we don't begin doing it soon, we just have to do it again.
I agree.
And so most of these are things that we've somehow have a plan for or engineered for or what have you, and therefore, in my mind, automatically makes them a higher priority than some other issues.
Maybe.
So
That's to my point. I think, someone made a decision that some of these projects were really high priority and we ought to start this pre-construction work on them. But there might be some other projects on the list that we have that maybe are more important than some of these. That's my point.
But we've already done a lot of the engineering on this. We've already
Yeah.
begun the
I understand
process,
that.
and which is, unfortunate if we don't do them, but we spend the money again somewhere downstream.
But that
So
doesn't mean
we
that
should
they're-
prioritize is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with.
Yeah.
So I had hoped to have a strategic discussion at the meeting coming up. But it won't fit in the time frame that we have with the other things that we have going on. The next opportunity would be in March, at our first March meeting, to have that discussion. I know it's further up back than I would have liked to have it. I think that we would have liked to have it. But if there is a discussion at the Public Works Committee, we've talked about a little bit here, a little bit more hashing out a Public Works Committee. We might be able to really drill down at that next meeting and come out with something.
I think that'd be a great plan. I think by then
By then,
we'd have an idea of what our unassigned fund balance, where
because
it preliminarily falls prior to being audited, but
yeah,
we kind of see where we are.
we might actually be able to make a dent in a couple things.
and that's what we kind of did last
Yeah.
year with funding and figuring out what we had remaining so we
Yeah.
could fund the projects.
And then once we prioritize them,
Mhm.
we're gonna have an idea of how much the total nut is, right?
Right.
And that goes to what Terry's saying, then we can go to somebody like Donegan and say, this is we need to fund, picking up X $1 million worth of projects, how do we do it?
And we
Well, and
also,
I think it finally sunk in.
So actually Jim and I were talking about this earlier this morning after looking at this list. And him and I wanted to have an internal meeting with Sarah, Jess, Murph, myself, and Jim to talk about and present to the town board these projects and where
You mean
we
really
see
narrow
some of
it
the,
down.
yeah, to narrow it down. At the end of the day, it's the town board's decision to move on these matters, but internally speaking, we all have a very good pulse on
Like that.
where we're at with outstanding projects, current projects, future projects, where I think internally we may have a better gauge of what is feasible and what may not be, and we
That-
would
that was
present
my
it
hope.
to the town board.
That's
That
great.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So that way you guys are not going back and forth on, oh gosh, where are we with this? And to John's point, there might be some things that you're not aware of that are outstanding. So I would like to propose that. Jim and I had discussed that next week actually might be a good thing for us to do that. So that way we can get something
To have a
presented
staff meeting on.
in a very
you're gonna-
timely.
Staff meeting next week. And then present it to present it in March.
We'd like to present it as soon as possible,
Okay.
because we know that there's, this is.
You could
obviously
present
very
it,
important.
you can present it doesn't have to be at a board meeting.
I was gonna say, maybe the best place to do it is a PPW meeting where we can have more open dialogue
More
about
open
it.
and intimate discussion on that.
Which I will be attending tomorrow's meeting,
That's
be
not gonna-
ready,
You're not
yeah.
gonna be ready for that,
well,
but
no, but just to
Yeah.
get more information.
That's what I was hoping to have gotten. When I kind of, we asked for this before, I was hoping to have gotten something really
Condensed.
focused and condensed, not a huge swath of everything under the sun.
Mhm.
Because we might be talking about something and you guys are like, no, we don't need that.
Right.
But that's, like the VA and their wood burning coal plant that they spent $20 million on, it just sits there.
yeah.
There would, we don't wanna do that.
Yeah.
So
We're just like
I
to
love
take the
that.
guesswork out of,
That is,
this process.
yes, so please.
Yeah, because
yes,
we have our
yes.
needs and we have our wants, right?
correct, so if we present what we feel our
The needs.
needs are, and then, as a collective
And then that
body. you guys
could,
can
And then
decide.
if there's some wants we want to throw in there, great, but I think we need to identify the needs.
When would you like us to present it?
when's the
At,
next?
which meeting?
So it would be at one of the other.
We do finance
Could
PPW
do it at
or,
a finance
or
or
a
PPW
town board meeting.
Well, we could have I think the goal. My goal would be to have a discussion on the 11th. At our first board meeting of March. We'll have a couple committee presentations that night. Do we have anything recurring that you can remember coming up? I can't remember.
Well, like carryover
Any,
resolutions.
any
and
public
stuff.
hearings?
You've got a PPW on the 8th.
Yeah.
That's a better place
I don't
to
know,
do it.
Terry,
No,
you
no,
feel
what
like
I'm
you
saying,
hijacked?
they present on the 8th, potentially, or whenever.
Run the whole thing for me.
We can then have that on the 11th.
The 11th is a board meeting.
Yeah, well, the 11th is our first board meeting of March, where we would have, and that could be more of a strategic discussion. Where we would have that discussion and maybe take these and then winnow them down and come up with a decision.
Was there something else that you mentioned earlier that?
I have a feeling there's something else happening in
Was
March, but I
it
can't.
bid or was it bid or
What-
did you,
We would, yeah,
Well,
there's a
there
bid
is-
meeting and the bid meeting in March, hopefully for lights.
but one of them, I think, was strategic planning.
Yeah, the strategic,
Have that.
this would be strategic plan, this would.
Well, this
part of
would be,
that.
yeah, but it was, I don't know if that was the 11th or if it was.
Yeah. So this fits right in with the hope that I want, that would be the next open date to have that.
Well, I mean, just that you had laid out a schedule for
Mhm.
those second meetings
Yeah.
of. It was like quarterly bid would be there,
Yeah.
then there's. Capital planning, there were other topics that you had listed for those meetings, so. I don't know which, I don't have that list in front of me.
Yeah, and that was tentative and that will kind of get winnowed down, but that got thrown off a little bit already. But, I think that meeting in March would be a good time to have it. After it's presented, and then we can have that, a broader discussion, public discussion on that and maybe come with an idea. I think people should also, we should be prepared with our thoughts of what we're comfortable spending too. Because I think
That might be driven by the needs though.
yeah,
Mhm.
it will be, but we've gotta be prepared.
That's why we need to identify
Yeah.
the needs versus the wants too.
Yeah,
And Terry, I think it finally sunk in what you were trying to say about putting putting it all together. I'm wondering if you go out to bond a bunch of things at the same time, it's kind of like buying power. You may be separate bonds, but if you're borrowing
well,
a
that,
big.
The aggregate number is going to be.
Correct. I think you may be able to do that because you're borrowing a bunch, but you technically have to have separate bonds, I think, for each special project. But
well,
if
that's-
you're saying, hey, I want $6 million, but I want 1 million for this.
Can we, big pot of money to disseminate out.
I think
That's
in a
what I-
sense you can, I think in a sense you can, you know, but. it
But
has
I'm
to-
gonna remind everybody that poor Jess is a finance clerk too.
You need to talk to John,
Yeah,
get
yeah,
people-
no, but that's, I just wanted to let you know that I think
Yeah.
I get where you're going.
And I would. Recommend that you not wait until we put some of this stuff together. to
No.
talk to 'em.
Mhm.
Nope,
It's just a general conversation or some
No,
question could be
I-
asked.
See what we
So-
can.
I'm
Oh,
interested,
okay.
I wanna learn, you know,
Yeah.
so, yeah, absolutely, I'll reach out to them right away.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of skip down a little bit here because I think we're gonna have a similar answer on, other than, Jim, was there any update from FEMA on Outhouse Road at all? I'm assuming we haven't heard anything from FEMA about funding any repairs over there. I think Jim's traveling again.
Maybe he's driving through Cheshire.
That's what we should spend all the money on.
I'm supposed to fix that.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump ahead because Lindsay wanted to talk about the Ononda Uplands and the org chart here.
Yeah, so the
quickly,
uplands
but-
at Motion Junction, honestly, those are in that same realm.
Same
of
world, yeah.
Projects that will also be discussed at PPW tomorrow. So I would prefer it if we could,
That's fine,
we
yep.
could just put a pin in that for now until
Yep.
we have more information. The organizational chart,
Just
Yeah.
one question about that before we leave that. Onanda Uplands and Motion Junction. Needs or wants?
they're in process projects. So that would be a need, so we can complete them.
We have the monies to complete them?
Well, that's what we gotta talk about.
Yes, I believe we do.
We have capital projects that have been set up, if I'm not mistaken.
We have capital projects,
Look them up.
for both of them. I'm not sure the background of Motion Junction. I'm not sure if we're contractually obligated to complete certain things because this is a partnership that we had with an outside. So I don't really know the details of that. And as for Ononda, we've already invested a bunch of money. We had set aside for over $400,000 from FEMA or from ARPA that we were gonna use. So there's money. We just have to.
So if there's money for them and they're already in progress.
Mhm.
Why are they on this list?
There's still a lot of pieces that are not. That we have not discussed with the board. To continue their progress.
Yeah.
So.
So there's
Motion
some outstanding issues that you need direction on in order to continue.
Correct.
Yep.
That is correct.
Things that would need resolutions to be passed.
Correct, like seeking proposals for infrastructure, for the uplands portion, Motion Junction. Would be more for our phase 3, which the town board did approve for the entrance, lights, parking. That would be something that we are doing this year, which is budgeted, but we need to seek proposals and we need the town board's guidance on that.
Is that something you can bring to tomorrow's PPW meeting and we
That's
can
what Jim and I
wrap
will
that
be
up?
bringing tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, because we would like to see these, especially Motion Junction, that piece.
It feels just like an open construction site.
Mhm.
It would be really nice to have that.
Just wrap it up before we.
Thank you.
For the season coming up, for sure.
Correct, yeah.
And
Yes.
we might want to move that cabin that's in our side yard.
That too.
Oh,
I rent it. It's really nice. My commute.
I could have stayed there a few nights.
It's inside. Have you been inside? You should go. Yeah.
Okay, so the org chart,
So. Everything going on, all the changes, we realize our org chart has not been updated in a very long time. So guys, can you pull that up through here and then just.
What about, oh, yeah.
Where is it?
It's, it was.
Sarah's doing
Oh, and go in the OneDrive, I think, right?
Yep, I have
Sort
it
of
saved.
OneDrive.
Who's logged in?
Me. Do I need to?
Oh, that's gonna take a while. Is it anywhere else?
I can move it somewhere else, or you can, you're already in. Oh. It's there first.
While you're looking for that.
I don't even know what the
response
phone
back.
It's a cloud-based data storage.
Drop it
system.
somewhere in the end.
Okay, so I got a response back from those guys while you're looking for that. It said, while we will not get so specific that we cross into being a registered investment advisor. We will provide the information to make the decision based on the following: the duration capability, rates associated with different investments, rates associated with different financial institutions.
It's just.
So I see that as rates with different investments, bank, CDs, whatever, this bank, that bank, that bank.
Right.
Perhaps it's a subtle difference, but we don't recommend anything specific. We provide the data and allow you to make the decision you're comfortable with. So they'll say, here's your money. You have it at a bank.
I'm
There's
sure
four
you're
other
gonna do that.
places
I'm
you
getting
four other
contact
places
Data.
that you can get at this amount.
But they won't say specifically what those places are.
No, they will.
They
They
do.
will
they
tell you
will.
specifically what they are.
They'll
yeah.
tell you what they are, but they won't say, we think, they'll say, here are your options.
Yeah.
Here are your rates, but they won't say, do this.
A minus.
Yeah,
Oh,
They
no,
can.
But they'll give you a list
They'll give you a
Yeah.
list.
yeah.
of specific XYZ company,
XYZ.
ABC.
Yeah, it's not.
And it sounds like we'll be moving a lot of stuff from Canada National to somewhere else if we go with them,
Yeah.
which doesn't really matter to
Well,
us.
yeah,
We want to make the most money we can.
a lot of it's in this New York class now.
And they work with me.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They can't recommend to us which one to
No.
choose
yeah.
without being a registered investment
Right,
advisor.
right.
So, and. have
But if they give
fiduciary
us a list of-
responsibilities. We can,
We pick it.
we can be like, gee, should we invest it in the 3% one or the 10% one? I think 10.
Yeah.
Both, we're both with the same risk.
Yes,
Right.
But it might be, you know. Lions Bank is 4.9%, for some banks somewhere else is 5.0%. Do we
But
keep
they-
it local for 4.9 or do we say
But
that's
I,
our decision?
don't we
Those are our
specifically
decisions.
approve in our policy, we can only invest in
We only-
X, Y, Z
I-
places.
I
right?
believe that you can change.
We
that.
can
Yeah.
change our investment policy
Yeah.
anytime, but it specifically says the banks, the institutions that we can use.
You're listing the banks that you currently are using.
Yes.
But that's my other question was, would they be looking at, Lions National Bank and, I don't know, M&T, like, are they, because M&T is not on our list, but Lions and
Well, we-
CNB are, so.
Yeah, that
So
was.
that's my question is would they only be looking between the ones that we currently
They look-
use
looking
or
current
all of
policy.
them?
So-
That's where we talk to other locales and say, who else do you use?
Mhm.
Okay,
Do we jump on?
that would be
some of
my
those?
question too. Can they suggest other
They will probably won't
institutions?
suggest,
And
but-
then, well, if they gave us rates with separate institutions and then we go about
Then we
contacting
could-
that
I
institution.
think they would say.
Creating
these
a relationship.
Are giving this
Yeah,
return,
yeah.
you don't use them.
That's what I
know,
was
It's not,
wondering.
that's, because technically, I don't think it's not the town's policy, it's a resolution stating what,
Mhm.
it's not, the policy doesn't say we can't use other institutions, it just says a resolution
Probably need to
saying,
revisit that policy.
yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
to make it more generic, right? So if we're gonna go with
Yeah.
it.
And I could talk to probably like Chris,
thank you.
you'll have to talk to Chris and Anthony about that, but if you find out from that, if it's, do they only go through the banks
Yeah.
that we currently have relation with, or are they going to be looking for other institutions?
Okay,
Once we know that, we can go.
back to org chart land.
Sorry, that's
So-
that color, that does make a difference, I can send the colored copy out after this. So if everyone wants to look at it. And if you have questions, let me know.
Can I ask where you made changes to draw my attention to that area first, so.
Well, I'm not sure which version you guys have ever seen before. The one presented back in August, this is incredibly similar to that one, minus, the HR and payroll coordinator's position is also connected to the Parks Director position following under. Whereas before that was kind of like dotted out and then separated.
Mhm,
Code enforcement, we have the code enforcement lead, which is
mhm.
code enforcement leader, and then there's one code enforcement officer under them, and code enforcement for fire. Another change is the planner, not being able to see this in color. You don't see that's noted as it's a part-time position right now, which is indicated by yellow. Otherwise, everything else you should be familiar with from the last time you viewed it in August.
No, we didn't approve this in August.
Correct.
No, we did not.
Yeah, so the one we're operating under right now is from older than that, and it's not.
With outdated positions and
One question that I have
Yeah.
is, and I don't know if I actually read this under state law, the receiver of taxes.
Mhm.
Cause I know that I'm supposed to sign off on any deposits the town receives
Mhm.
within a certain period of time. I don't know if that affects the receiver of taxes at all. I know it's an appointed position, so it would fall under that other level. But I also know the receiver of taxes receives money that I then have to account for. So I don't know if that creates a gray area.
No, I think that's actually a great question. So I anticipated some of these questions
Yeah.
regarding that portion
I
with
don't know.
registrar vital statistics. So regarding receiver of taxes, so on June 10th of 2013, the town board established the receiver of taxes to be an appointed office. And appointed the town clerk as the receiver of taxes effective January 1st of 2014. So I'm not sure where, honestly, I
So
will take
then would it-
suggestions on where you would like it placed from anybody here. It falls under that, I believe it was originally under this category where it's placed right now because it is considered an appointed position by the town board. However, I don't disagree in any way that it could potentially be moved elsewhere. It's just, where does it make the most sense?
Why wouldn't it be aligned to the town clerk?
Because the town clerk doesn't is not appointing that position. And it is the town clerk. So how do you make that make sense on this form?
Yeah, how do you make it make sense?
Use a dotted and a solid line.
Is it?
Does the receiver of taxes report to the town clerk?
They
It's the
are
same
the
They're the
person.
same person.
It is right now, but
always the same person?
that's the question.
By
Going back to,
resolution, the town clerk is the receiver of taxes.
prior to making that change in 2014. Cindy Woolley was our receiver of taxes. That was a separate position. But when the town crossed, after the census in 2010, we crossed over the line of 10,000 people. Then you become a Class A town. And the town clerk can be the receiver of taxes. Prior to that, you had to have it, they were separate. You know, you had to have, and it was an elected position. Tax receiver. Cindy was elected to that position, so.
So why don't we just make the title town clerk and receiver of taxes?
That's what I was gonna suggest too.
If it.
That's where it's gonna
If it's,
happen.
if it's by residence.
This meeting, we will have an official resolution for the town board to approve. So this is
Yeah.
the time to make these
And
changes.
is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, just make the title town clerk and receiver of
Because
taxes.
then the town clerk provides for report, the town clerk who is the receiver of taxes provides reports to me. That I then sign,
Mhm.
provides reports to the supervisor that I then sign, so. And there's that parallel line that, yeah, that's,
Is it the same answer with the registrar of vital statistics, or is that a different situation?
That's appointed also.
So would the title of town clerk now become town clerk /
Just on this, I don't think
receiver
we
of
need to,
taxes?
I would just do it here, because
I agree.
otherwise,
Gets confused.
there's all sorts of legal
Right,
ramifications of
That's
that.
what I'm wondering about.
No, just on
Well,
here,
I just
so.
wonder, like, should it stay, I don't know, but should it stay, like, we have other people who have more than one title, but it's
Mhm.
separate because technically they're separate appointed positions. And it may be held by the same person, but
Yeah.
does it change anything? But it shouldn't, I don't know, I know, it's like, we're ready to
What,
visually represent
what
it.
example were you thinking of?
Does that?
I guess it's kind of like some of these other
positions.
Well, that's why, I don't know, I don't know all the rules with the stuff, well, like Jim's, but those are both, like the water superintendent. He's appointed to that
Yes.
position,
Mhm,
but we keep it separate because it makes sense and it's,
mhm.
you know, he does
Oh,
both, but it's
right.
not the same as highway, so we keep it separate.
Yeah.
For the,
Yeah.
for the receiver of taxes position is that same, do we still need to have it separate even though it's the same person?
Well, so I think the water and the highway is separated the way it should be right now, because there could be a potential future where we have that elected highway superintendent and we were to hire a separate water superintendent. I mean,
Could
that's,
not do that with receiver of taxes?
no,
They
that's
Like
what,
town
that's what
code.
it's just saying,
Always?
town code.
Then I agree,
Because-
yeah, you should put it together.
we just have to change the law.
To add another one.
No.
Yes.
Wait, putting them together changes,
No.
Well, they've had, in 13, the
Separate.
law was passed to combine them.
No,
So-
they,
So
So if
They
we
are-
separated them, then we would have to change.
we'd have to change the law if we ever wanted to.
then if they're always this.
They're always the same going
Person, then
forward.
yeah, it should be in the same box,
Yes.
right?
So
That
there's-
makes
Also,
more
then
sense.
that brings up another point because the records management officer, based on chapter 56 of our town code, is the town clerk. The town clerk is designated as records management officer.
And.
However, that person, so the town clerk, the records management officer may appoint a designee. So on our current form here, we just have, well, it says
Records access.
record access manager, so that has to change, but do we even keep this on here? Because they are the town clerk.
We're bouncing around a little
Yeah.
bit. I got confused. We don't hire the water superintendent, do we?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
We
It's an
do.
appointed
it's Jim.
position.
So then it should stay on the org chart as shown.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in the right spot.
And you're now raising another issue about. Say it again,
The record access manager.
and where's that on?
Records.
Left-hand
So
side.
you're left.
See these three right here? These are all basically town clerk office things. And we've been chattering about them a lot, so.
So
Record
is it
access
necessary to
manager?
even have it on here because?
Yeah.
Because it's automatically
Is that
one of the things
It
that the
is the
town
town
clerk
clerk.
does.
No, I don't think it needs. to be.
Well, if,
This implies it's a separate,
Correct.
you look
Right,
at it, you
yeah.
think they're all
It
separate
does.
people.
Right.
But they're not.
No, those
And
are
by-
those,
Separate
And by
position.
town code, they're not. So we would have to change town code, which then this would make sense. So
is it just part of a job description?
why do we have it on here?
No, it's,
Because I
they're,
think
they're
in the
official
past,
roles that you have to
Separate,
have
right,
in every
right, I agree.
town. So they're,
you just
Does
take
that
them
not
off.
apply to the vital statistics also?
That's a whole different topic.
So,
Vital's even more vitally interesting.
so do we
That's
put
an
that,
additional topic.
do we put that underneath the town clerk or just take off record access manager?
If they're already defined as part of the job, I just.
Yeah, right, I mean, the town clerk is
Don't need
the
'em.
records
I just
manager.
wanted to. rest
Yeah,
from
I just kill
Yeah,
it,
the
okay,
town board
exit
makes
out.
the most sense.
kill it with fire.
Exit out.
And I got
Job
a
description.
question.
Yes.
Or should it be in the box at the top?
The zoning boards of appeals is supposed to be a separate entity from. And not under the control of the town board. The way this shows, they're. Well, maybe not because you got a dotted line.
We have to appoint them and then they're on their own.
Well, we do. Have oversight over. All of these, with the exception of the zoning board of appeals. We appoint that person, but. We don't really control that person. We don't manage that person.
But
Nor
is it
so
do
the
we
same
manage
way
the
as
planning
like
board.
the other
We don't
ones?
manage the town highway superintendent. So my question is, should it be on the upper line? Just like the town highway superintendent?
Those are all elected ones on the top.
Yeah.
That whole top, you've got elected town clerk, elected supervisor, elected
So
board, elected
we-
highway, elected.
We appoint
justice.
those people, but in theory, we don't manage those people.
Who?
The zoning
Planning
board of
board,
appeals.
Oh.
We manage them, we make sure, we have oversight to make sure that we do have a fully staffed ZBA.
Yes, that's all our
That's all
role is.
our role is. So there, I think. This, in my mind, this implies that as well, that, yeah, we,
Isn't that the same as the Board of Assessment review?
The barn.
yeah, the Board of Assessment review the same thing. We can't tell them what
We
to
can't
do.
tell them what to do.
But yeah,
Perhaps maybe keeping them where they are is fine, but put those two next to each other. And then the planning board and the environmental conservation board, you know, they all operate under the state law.
but I mean, we can't tell the planning board what to do either,
We can't.
Maybe you can
No,
make them a different
no.
color.
unless we fire them all.
Those
Town
two-
board can
Alright.
act as a planning
Alright,
board,
so-
but if you designate a separate planning board, you.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask So then the follow-up then is, the architectural advisory committee falls
Are they
under our
different colors?
purview, right?
They're not a decision-making board.
So.
Right, so maybe that should be a dark line. And the Parks and Rec. Environmental conservation and agriculture, we have direct control over and we manage them, right?
So John, what's hard to discuss with this being in black and white is these would be in blue and then under here, it says anyone in blue is just a town board appointment. That's
So-
all that delineates.
But really. Org chart defines management structure. And I think it could be simply done by having a dotted line go to the zoning board of appeals, the planning board, and the board of assessment review. And then put a solid line to the agriculture advisory committee, the parks and recreation committee, and the environmental conservation board. Because they work at our leisure, right, or our purview. We manage them. We don't want them, if they're not doing a good job, we can, right? We can fire them, but we can't do it with the other people, right? We appoint them, but we don't really manage them.
No, we don't manage them, but I don't know.
It's
if
the same
we appoint
process
them,
though to
could we
remove
also
someone, I
remove them?
think.
Yes,
On any
because
of
you
this.
did that. You did get rid of someone.
Yeah, we
years
did,
ago.
didn't we? So we do have,
Well, we could, you can, so you can get rid of a planning board member. But it has to be for cause. You
Yeah,
can't just
yeah.
say, we don't like you.
Right.
And it has to be dereliction of duty or whatever else. We can't say we don't like you make the decisions that you make. There has to be a specific reason. You could also disband the entire planning board and bring in a whole new planning board if you chose to. But the zoning board of appeals, there's a much lengthier process because zoning board of appeals is created by statute. By law, you know, you have to have that, so. As far as removing members of the ZBA, I don't know what the process of that is, if it's a much more difficult process.
But I think it's under here because we're appointing them, but I
Yeah.
think to John's point, simply
I'm fine
changing the
having-
dotting of the
yeah,
line or
I'm fine with that.
making it solid is not a big deal.
I'm fine with that.
I think that,
I think that's a great.
that makes it more
suggestion.
clear that there's supervisory
That there's a
control of
difference
some
in these
levels.
boards and in their function. Yeah, I'm fine with that, dotted versus solid.
Can we talk about the other?
The registrar,
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so by public health law, 4121(3)(a).
did you just have that in the back of your mind? Did you write that down?
Just memorize. So the Registrar of Vital Statistics is a town board appointment. And it states that our town clerk is eligible for appointment. So again, it is the town clerk,
Mhm.
Always?
according to.
No, it just says they're available for appointment.
So
or
why
eligible for.
have to give that position to the town clerk?
It could be a separate position if
It's
the town
available.
board decided and they were
But
eligible.
larger overall question, why is registrar of Vital Statistics a receiver of taxes? We already answered that. And deputy registrar, why is that whole little section down in that section instead of up with town clerk?
So I can't answer what was done before or
Yeah.
carried over. That's how it has been approved in the past. And it's my understanding that it was because it is not. Because it was a town board appointment. Were
Those
appointed
positions.
Sure,
at
which
that
makes sense to me, but I have a black line going to the town manager.
Yeah, for those positions.
Mhm.
That doesn't make sense.
And I
to
feel like
me.
it should go to the board,
time. Correct.
right?
Oh, make them dotted lines like the other appointments?
Well,
Yeah,
that's what's up for discussion right now,
Mm.
Mhm.
and I'm happy to make the changes. Those three
Well,
are
would
what
they
I
be,
need guidance on.
would they be a dotted line though? Because does the town board have actual management of those positions?
We
or
appoint
not?
them, they do their thing.
Well, appointed, but does town board actually manage them,
Let's
like
move
we
them
talked
up.
before?
Let's move
Put
them
them
up a
next to-
level.
Next to zoning board,
Yeah, move them
you
up,
said the same thing, right?
Yeah.
move them up a
what I'm
level
saying.
and draw a solid line to them. Because we appoint them, but we don't tell you how to register your statistics.
Or a dotted line.
Registrate your system.
We don't tell you how to registrate, you registrate on your own.
Vitals.
And we don't know what your vitals are
Yeah, we don't know how to make
and
registrar
what
a
those
verb.
statistics are, so you registrate them however you want.
Okay, Jim's gone.
Jim didn't want to be here for this.
Yeah, that's the highway meeting.
And I apologize for anyone who has continually watched this meeting.
So sorry.
Sorry, I have nothing else better than life.
Okay, so do we have other questions on this or can we let Lindsay just make sense of all this wonderful
I'll
language?
get it. I will send it out in color for everyone to look at, and then we will put a resolution on the end of February.
In color,
In color.
with the attachment.
In living color.
I was gonna say that.
Awesome.
Well, it's
You
just
get
the
one?
whole computer thing, like our, she couldn't print, we can't print it to the development office. which
Don't
is
leave
where
just
the color
yet.
picture is.
I actually have executive session that we need to do, believe it or not, just real quick though, but don't leave just yet, sorry. So I'm sorry, Lindsay did request an executive session, so, you can head out,
We'll have Sarah Powell.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, this is mine. I'm gonna
You
pass.
requested it. I was very kind of excited, you know.
So we're going
Yeah.
to adjourn the meeting then?
Yes, so we'll,
So you can shut.
well,
that.
I don't think we have to adjourn it because we're executive sessioning it, so we have to keep it open and
Pause.
pause, can you
Wow.
pause the,
Sure, next.
pause recording and pause the. Look at me figuring this stuff out by myself. Can I get a motion to reopen the finance committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We would now like to close. Can I get a motion to close the finance committee? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.